Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. I always appreciate your presence and sharing your time with me. Thank you so much. So I will share at this standard news analysis on the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed speech to the special emergency session of Ethiopian Parliament. Plus, I have a video about the resignation of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Also, the US sanction on Iran petroleum and petroleum products. So I have 2-3 videos and plus a couple of news to share with you in the reading. So thank you again. So I will start with Addis Standard analysis on the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed speech. In general, the Prime Minister seems angry, frustrated when he was responding to this emergency session and the questions presented to him by members of the parliament. So I have a short clip also of that speech just to show how he is frustrated or angry and blaming outsiders for the domestic problem and claiming Ethiopia never been colonized, all these unnecessary things instead of, resigning from his post because he's a failed leadership. Let me start. Premier defends planned talks with Tigray, says Ethiopia fighting against a grey war, errand runners. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told lawmakers that the ruling Prosperity Party has decided to pursue peaceful paths with the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front TPLF based on the national interest of the country and that our doors are open for peace. The Premier said that the ruling Prosperity Party didn't say anything bad but to express its wishes for peaceful resolution and that its plan should not be pushed aside. Negotiations take place even amid war between warring parties, he said, and mentioned examples of the military Derg and the Houthi rebels in Yemen. The forces fighting us are plenty, and war with all of them will bring destruction. To give a chance for peaceful solution is not a bad thing, he said. He also addressed the issues that the TPLF was designated as a terrorist organization by the parliament by the telling the lawmakers that the designation was done by the previous parliament. So he says it's a good thing to have a talk or with a TPLF. Yes, Concerned Citizens Media also agree and talked about even before the start of the war, warning not to start the war. So talk to settle the dispute, the concerns of citizens in a peaceful manner should be encouraged. He should talk to OLA too. Now he tried, he's fighting too many wars, and he want to settle the issue with TPLF because that's a threat to his power. So he want to settle that, but he don't want to settle the issue he has under his feet in Oromia, which is the cause of many civilian deaths in that area. So he should settle. And I don't know why he didn't ask the parliament to remove the designation of TPLF. If you want to talk, how are you going to talk to, with the party or the organization you designated as a terrorist organization? The first step is to convince the parliament to remove that name, to remove that designation from TPLF and also from OLA. That's a peaceful resolution. That's the beginning of peaceful resolution. Conflict should be resolved, and you should remove that naming first, the blacklisting. Grey war and errant runners. In a lengthy address to questions from the parliamentarian, the Prime Minister also said that what Ethiopia was facing today was a grey war, not white, not black. He mentioned as example the information war against Ethiopia seen in the global media report during incidents of killings. Ethiopia will be hard pressed to prevent this. Ethiopia wants to fight, but it is not easy, he said. Diplomatic pressure is the other example the premier mentioned. By all accounts, less people died in Ethiopia in recent years than in other countries where death occurs every day, he said. But even as their own kids die in their cities, many countries make our agenda their priority. He blamed coordinated attack on Ethiopia by what he described as errand runners who cannot stand on their own feet but do the bidding of our enemies, and said that there were areas selected to be dismantled, destroyed. Pitting Ethiopians along ethnic lines between the Oromo and the Amara, or the Sidama and the Wolaita, Afar and the Somali, Benishangul Gumuz, Amara and Oromo, as well as sectarian fault lines between Muslims and Christians. The challenge for the government is that before calming down Sidama and Wolaita, for example, the Isa and the Afar are incited because major campaign has been done to dismantle Ethiopia using these fault lines, he claimed, but said that so far it has proved to impossible. I assure you that no country that fights Ethiopia can dismantle it. It may be possible to weaken us economically through pressures, but it is impossible to dismantle Ethiopia. He vowed. However, that does not mean they will refrain from attempting. The door is plenty for these merchants who benefit from this. Errand runners are also in Addis Ababa, he said. The Prime Minister expressed his condolences for the lives lost due to recent mass and indiscriminate killings, a phenomenon that has been steadily rising in the country for the past few years. But he emphasized that security forces were carrying out their responsibilities to protect even under situation he described as extreme and demanding of sacrifices. With regard to the recent atrocities in Western Oromia, the Prime Minister said the victims were born in Wollo and went there at 5 and 6 years of age. They lived, married, studied, farmed, produced in the area. Killing these people does not fulfill any political objective. Killing innocents like this shows the intent of those who want to destroy Ethiopia. So he is, I don't know why he mentioned these people history came when they are very young, and instead of addressing what Hangasa Ibrahim talked about this killing. Hangasa Ibrahim is a MEP of Ethiopia, clearly indicated that, you know, the Sheni organized by Oromia regional government is conducting these killings in Oromia region, you know, organized, financed, trained by regional government and killing these people. So he didn't want to address that. He just addressed it. These are outsiders who came from different region, settled there. So I don't know why he mentioned all this. He blamed the killing on Shani, equating it with terrorism, which he said was multifaceted and happens worldwide, including in countries with developed capabilities. He mentioned the US, which has one of the most effective law enforcement capacities, and yet he said more than 20,000 people were killed in the US in 1 year. In 6 months alone in Los Angeles County, 224 people were killed, he said, and mentioned other places including Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., New York, and Chicago. Thousands were killed in the last 6 months alone by terrorists, he said, and told the lawmakers that the problem was a global problem that should not be taken as Ethiopia's only problem. It was the main agenda of the recent G7 meeting too, according to him. Okay, now he's just using the numbers from United States, different cities in the United States, to avoid responsibility. Avoid responsibility. What is happening in that country? You know, you can take the numbers, you can compare, but you try to minimize, do better than other countries, okay? Not to cover up your failure, weakness of leadership in that country. You cannot compare Ethiopia and the United States. Ethiopia, nobody own a gun, except those maybe fighting for freedom, and the government. These are two groups. The public has no gun. No gun. So in the United States, Second Amendment, there is a right to be armed, guns everywhere. Yes, because of this, civilians may die. This is obvious. Some crazy individuals go to school and gun down these young kids, because the guns, you can purchase it easily, but Ethiopia, you cannot do that. So I don't see the comparison between Ethiopia and the United States. No, you cannot compare. There is a freedom of arming yourself in the United States, but there is no freedom of arming yourself in Ethiopia. Mostly guns are controlled by the government, but some also armed themselves to fight for freedom. Except this group, the general public is peaceful, doesn't have any gun. So There is no room for comparison. That is a wrong idea. That is to avoid responsibility for the failure of leadership. He blamed the Shane for bringing similar problem to Ethiopia and said that Shane is the prime enemy of the Oromo people that lacks a political agenda and agency and is only used as an instrument for other entities' nefarious purposes. He vowed to continue the fight against the armed group. That is wrong idea. You should sit down if you want to settle the political instability in Ethiopia. If you are vowed, determined to continue fighting with Oromo people, you will not go anywhere. You will not get peace. You will not get peace. So you should sit down with those concerned Oromos, settle the issue. You cannot settle the issue with guns. So you can give them whatever names you want, but that is not, that's not resolve the issue. You say OLA is the, public enemy number one. Leave that to the public to determine if it's true. That is a propaganda. That's a propaganda against this group. So for the peaceful resolution in that country, number one, you need to sit down with Oromos who are concerned, who are not appreciated your leadership. So that's my comment. Al-Beiti promising to curb the increasing violence across the country, even at the great of expense to security forces. The Prime Minister stressed that the people of Ethiopia at large should cooperate with security forces to bring a sustainable solution to the country's precarious state of security. The Prime Minister mentioned that around 80 police officers and cadres were killed in the Rashe Special Worada in SNNP regional state as example of sacrifices paid by security forces. That is also an indication of your failed leadership. However, in order to tackle Ethiopia's security challenge, the government is continuing its major security reform process within the security sector, including the army, the intelligence, and the police, he said. And this institutionalization considers four major pillars: ethnicity, the national defense forces, and other law enforcement agencies should be used for ethnic benefit. Faith. Ethiopians have faith, majority are Christians and Muslims, but faith cannot become a part of this institution. Political views. Everyone has political views, but this cannot be allowed to influence this institution, and that they were free from recent seeking practices. Okay? This major institutional building process has resulted in a major outcomes, he said, and added that within the National Defense Forces, this process has shown a 95% success. Similarly, it has also showed substantial improvement within the police and the intelligence. In addition to the institutional reform process in security sector, the government is following what he said was a 4D strategy: prevent, pursue, protect, and prepare. Okay. Responding to a question of lack of holding perpetrators of crimes accountable within the security, the Prime Minister defended the works being done by security forces to protect Ethiopians and blamed politicians, activists who occupied the airwaves of unjustly pointing fingers at the security. But when the police pursue criminals and bring them to court, they are nowhere to be seen. According to him, more than 11,000 people were arrested in the wake of the violence in Oromia region following the June 29, 2020 assassination of popular Oromo artist Hachalu Hundessa, and more than 9,000 were charged, of whom some 4,000 were sentenced. Furthermore, the Prime Minister defended his administration against critics that the administration's priority while people are being killed were to plant trees. He told the lawmakers that such criticism comes from the enemy. Don't listen, he said, adding, while people die, we will plant seedlings in the same place so that at least the body has a shade. That is really an insult. It's a belittling those expressed their concern about these killings. But this guy is he's saying whatever comes to his mind. Instead of addressing the security challenge in the country, he say, we can continue planting for every individual died for this incident, so the dead might get a shade. This is ridiculous answer, ridiculous explanation. In general, it's just belittling Ethiopians and those parliament members, degrading them, trashing them because they are weak. They are smiling, laughing, instead of challenging him and instead of removing him. They have the power to remove him, but they don't want to use it. Just like, the Prime Minister of UK forced to be, forced and ousted, forced to resign. The Ethiopian MEPs and the cabinets can do that too by resigning from their position. But these are scary cats, and they worry about their money and their position. So he can play on them. He just tell them whatever he wanna tell them, and just belittle them, degrade them, and give them whatever answer comes to his mind. And in general, Ethiopians also the victim of his stupid answers, really. Danger of dismantling the system. Responding to calls on establishment of a transitional government, the Prime Minister dismissed such notion as a myth that has been there since the time of Emperor Haile Selassie and scolded those who demanded as people who were not prepared. He also said that those who asked such question then are asking it today. The question didn't go away during EPRDF either, he said. Those who keep asking for a transitional government didn't understand its dynamics during the Emperor, the Derg, and the EPRDF, and they can't now because they don't understand the danger of dismantling the system. Many of them never administered one kabali, one agency, but they want to teach us, he said. This is all an excuse to stay in power. Nothing else. If you are thinking about the challenge Ethiopians are facing, security challenge, unemployment, global isolation, inflation. All these are created under your leadership. You will resign, really. You would give a chance for transitional government instead of using all these trashy words to secure your position. Nothing will happen. If Ethiopians come together, select strong candidate to lead that country instead of dealing with you, with PP, failed leadership of your leadership. So don't use these excuses. There is a demand during different administration, transitional government, because there is a need. The same thing happening now. The same thing happening. And you should try. You should give a chance for transitional government instead of creating a peaceful dialogue for nonsense talks. No, that will not bring any peace in that country. You should resign. Concerned citizens media repeatedly ask on you to resign, just like former Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn. He resigned before things became out of control. But you are just sitting there and watching people die, people suffer with unemployment, high inflation, fuel surge. People can't even afford food. So this excuse useless, and you should open the door for transitional government. His government has three things to address the issue, he said: established and independent election board. That is fake. We don't have any independent election board in Ethiopia. You have Burtukan leading the way you want to lead the election board. Held an election better than election held so far. Included cabinet members from defeated contending parties and established a national dialogue commission. You should know that you have 4 years, he's telling the parliament. No force will dismantle you using media campaign. He told the lawmakers, but those calling for transitional government should be allowed to express their wishes, while the government will continue to do its jobs. And that is not necessary to lend that much ear to such calls. He is telling them, ignore about transition calls about the transitional government in Ethiopia. These are, you have 4 years, you have a mandate, so continue your job. Don't worry about people dying, people suffering, high inflation, all this. Don't worry about this. Just sit there, listen to me. That's why he's saying it, So the MEPs in Ethiopia should learn from Britain. Britain officials, cabinets, they should learn. I know they start challenging. We see some members challenging the prime minister, especially those from National Movement for Amara, start walking out from the meeting, asking tough questions. These are a good start, but they are not enough. The MEPs must start demanding the prime minister leave the office. If not, they should resign from their position. That will bring him down. That will bring him down. So instead of sitting there, trashed by his words and degraded by his answer, belittled by his explanation, it's better to demand his removal. You can do it. You have the power. Leave the office. Resign, just like UK cabinets. So this is This is a very tough one also about U.S. Sanctioning Iran. Sanctions are the start of the war. You know, so we are now begin to see rough relationship between U.S. and Iran. Let's read. This is a press statement. Anthony J. Blinken, Secretary of State. The United States is designating 15 individuals and entities that engaged in the illicit sales and the shipment of Iranian petroleum products, and petrochemical products. These entities located in Iran, Vietnam, Singapore, and the United Arab Emirates and Hong Kong have supported Iranian energy trade, generating millions of dollars worth of illicit revenue. The Department of State is designating one Vietnam-based entity, Truong Pat Lac Shipping Trading JSC, for engaging the shipment of petroleum products from Iran. Truong Pat Lac Shipping Trading JSC served as the commercial and technical manager for a vessel that transported Iranian petroleum products. The State Department is also designating one Singapore-based entity, Everwin Ship Management Pte. Limited, which has engaged in the transport of Iranian petroleum products. Everwin Ship Management Pte. Limited served as the technical manager for a vessel that transported Iranian petroleum products. Additionally, the State Department is designating 3 Iran-based entities, Zagros Tarabarana E Area, Persian Gulf Star Oil Company, and East Ocean Rashing Shipping Company Limited, which have engaged in the sale and shipment of Iranian petroleum products. Zargos Tarbaran E Area is a shipper of Iranian petroleum products, which Persian Gulf Star Oil Company is the largest producer of gas condensate in Iran, and as such has directly engaged in the production of Iranian petroleum products. Each Ocean Rushing Shipping Company Limited is a port agent and freight forwarder of Iranian petroleum and petrochemical products. These actions are being taken pursuant to Executive Order 13846. In addition, the Department of Treasury is designating 8 entities and 2 individuals located in Iran, Hong Kong, and the United Arab Emirates that support the continued involvement of Naftarian Intrade Company, Iran Petrochemical Company, Persian Gulf Petroleum Chemical Industry Commercial Company, Trilliance, and Bahrain Oil in the sale of Iranian petroleum and petroleum products abroad. The United States has been sincere and steadfast in pursuing a path of meaningful diplomacy to achieve a mutual return to to full implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. It is Iran that has to date failed to demonstrate a similar commitment to that path. Absent a change in course from Iran, we will continue to use our sanctions authorities to target exports of petroleum products, and petrochemical products from Iran. So, as I said, this is not a simple matter, and this is a beginning of another war between U.S. And the U.S. allies and Iran. And I hope they will find a different solution. As you know, this is a very challenging sanction. Then, when the country cannot survive, then they might start confrontation that will lead to war. So that's my understanding of these sanctions. Thank you. That's the last part of the reading. I have videos to share. There you go. The first one is short clip from Prime Minister speech in Amharic. Then apologies again. There you go. There you go. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. Okay. There you go.
አንድ አባት የእሳቸው ልጅ ሸኔ ሆኖ ያውቃሉ። ደብቀዋለች ስለሆነ ያ ሸኔን በአቅራቢያቸው ቆፍሮ መሳሪያ ቀብሯል። ተናደው ለፖሊስ ልጅ ሸኔ ነው መሳሪያን እዚህ ቀብሯል ኑና ውሰዱ ብለው አስፈትሸው መሳሪያ ፖሊስ ይወስዳል። ልጅ ይሰማል ድርጊታቸው። ጓደኞቹ ይዞ መጥቶ ቤቱን ዘግቶ አባትየውን አስሮ አቃጠላቸው። ይህ አባቱን አስሮ የሚያቃጥል ሰው ነው። አሁን ሰው ሆኖ እሱ የኦሮሞ ተወካይ የሚሆነው ለማንም የማይመልሱ
So you see how he acts, how he is frustrated.
ጀሌዎችና ባንዳዎች ከፍተኛ ዘመቻ ተደርጓል። ምንም በኢኮኖሚ ጫና ቢያዳክሙ ምንም እርስ በርስ ሞኝ ተላላኪ እየፈለጉ ቢያጋድሉንም ማንም ሀገር ከኢትዮጵያ ጋር ተዋግቶ ኢትዮጵያን ማሸነፍም ማፍረስም አይችልም። አባቶቻችን
Okay, he's warning other countries you cannot win. You can't win the war. You can't win Ethiopia.
Was an emotional roller coaster. Fuel prices soared in Ethiopia on Wednesday after the government reduced subsidies. There were long queues at petrol stations in the capital Addis Ababa, with drivers reporting shortages as they tried to fill up their tanks. The price of petrol at the pump jumped 30% to nearly 49 birr, or about 94 US cents, after the change. There's a shortage of fuel in the city. At most of the gas stations, there's a long queue. I don't know the cause of the problem, but there's a shortage. Whenever I want to fill the gas tank, I should either wake up early in the morning or wait for hours. Because of the hike, I'll drive my car comparatively less from now on than when it was cheaper. All the movement of goods is tied to the fuel prices. I hope the government will control the cost of living related to the fuel hike. Otherwise, it will create a crisis. The federal government, which had already hiked prices in May, plans to lift fuel subsidies progressively. The country of more than 110 million has seen inflation hovering at around 35% over the past 6 months.
It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister.
Countless political scandals and 59 ministerial resignations later, Boris Johnson has now resigned. But just because he's resigned doesn't mean he's going anytime soon. Johnson seems determined to remain as caretaker Prime Minister until his replacement is elected by the Tory party. However, former Conservative Prime Minister John Major, as well as many Tory MPs and opposition parties, are all calling on him to go now. Before his resignation, Boris Johnson hired new members of his cabinet, replacing everyone who had quit.
And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve.
But the government is essentially in a limbo-like state where everyone's on a temporary contract.
Our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times. I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now, and the timetable will be announced next week.
If the Tory party act quickly, they could have their top two nominees for the next leader before the end of July, before summer parliamentary recess. And that could mean they could have a new leader by September. But the real power here lies with the 1922 committee, the committee of Tory MP backbenchers, and they decide the timings when it comes to nominations and elections, and therefore it's up to them when Boris Johnson goes.
Holding the presidency of the G20, Indonesia's president, Joko Widodo, has positioned himself at the center of global events. After meeting with leaders of the G7 last week, he undertook shuttle diplomacy between the combatants in the Ukraine war, seeing for himself the destruction in the town of Irpin outside the capital, Kyiv.
It's very sad that a lot of houses and infrastructure are broken. We hope no other Ukraine cities will be ravaged because of the war.
Then to Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. As a leading force in the so-called non-aligned movement of nations, Indonesia believes it could act as a bridge between the two sides.
Participation in G20 summit meeting will be a very valuable opportunity for the Russian government to address its own position to the rest of the world, and which is not only advantageous to Putin government of Russia, but it may be quite conducive to all warring party in the Ukraine crisis.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is due to hold bilateral meetings with some of his counterparts, but significantly not with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The last time the two met was in a tense encounter in January, when Lavrov gave his assurance Russia had no plans to invade Ukraine, a month before it did just that. The G20 came into being in part to deal with the fallout from economic crises that the G7 couldn't handle on its own, especially in recent times. This gathering takes place as the world is now facing the perfect storm of global challenges. The Ukraine war threatens a worldwide food crisis, and Indonesia, like many countries, is heavily reliant on grain from the region. The war is also helping push up energy costs that are driving inflation. Added to that, ongoing tensions in the Indo-Pacific, with China increasingly confronting its neighbors and NATO at its last meeting promising to push back. In this idyllic island setting, the world is looking for solutions to some nightmarish scenarios, with any signs of progress being welcome right now. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Bali.
Okay, that's the last video. Thank you, Al Jazeera. So the video you see from on the Prime Minister's speech, you see how he's angry, frustrated. Maybe he was expecting a call from MEPs to resign, but it didn't happen this time. I hope it will happen in the future. That's why you see he's frustrated, he's fearful, angry, and just giving whatever whatever answer comes to his mind. And he is also blaming foreign entities. Even he didn't mention any, but he say you cannot defeat Ethiopia. Ethiopia is historically very strong and non-colonized. I don't know why he bring all these things. The issue is domestic, internal, and the issue is your failed leadership in that country. And you should address the domestic issue before boasting about Ethiopia's strengths, Ethiopia's readiness to fight the external force. How are you gonna fight if you are weak at home? Cannot fight. So settle the issue. Give the chance for the transitional government establishment in that country, because you are not good in leadership. You are failed in multiple phases, and you caused bloodshed in that country. And he's tried to tint ugly picture or on OLA, Oromo Liberation Army, by bringing an example of father and a son. Father is a peaceful citizen, and his son is, in the OLA, so the burning of his house, and by telling us that Onyx Shene are not capable of leadership. They are burning civilian homes, killing civilians. No, leave that decision to the Oromo people. If these people are really the enemy of the Oromo people, they can determine, not you, not Prosperity Party. Leave that decision to the Oromos. Oromos know more mature than you who is good, who is bad. They know. So this kind of politics tried in the past, and you are using the same bad tactics by blaming, by designating. It will not work. Leave that decision to the public, and you should resign, really, instead of blaming foreigners, taking example from other countries to cover up your crime. You are a failed leadership, and you should give a chance to the new leadership. And the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson resigned. What he did? He lied about going out party during COVID-19. People die? No. People injured? No. But in Ethiopia, under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, too much bloodshed. And our cabinets, our parliament members, still there. They are not demanding the ousting of this prime minister. After all this damage happened in that country. So you see the difference between UK and Ethiopia? UK, people, this cabinet member, 59 of them, unsatisfied with this guy leadership. Even though no life lost, nobody injured, no destruction in UK, still removed him, ousted him. So we should learn from UK how to remove with no confidence, really, leadership that showed failure. So that's the comment I'm gonna make. And the G20 ministerial meeting is in Bali, Indonesia, and it might also bring other 20 leaders after ministerial meeting. Maybe the presidents might join. So that's the updates I have for today. I hope the MEPs, Ethiopia MEPs, will listen to this video and listen to my call to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, because he is an example of a failed leadership. He's a liar, and he used lies, deceit as a tactic, and degraded Ethiopian, belittled, trashed Ethiopians, and created a country with high inflation, high bloodshed, ethnic tension, international isolation, so many other problems. So don't wait. If he don't resign, if he doesn't resign, you should resign. Don't work with him. If you work with him, you are part of the problem. So use UK's example in the future to deal with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. If not, he will come back again, give you a trash answer. He will degrade you, and you just sit there and clap your hand and smile with him while the country is facing a great danger. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back with other news and updates. Be safe. So long, everyone.